of 2025. Brenden, Rob Browne, our executive producer in Ocala. Brenden, we're talking before the show. Headlines, Judge Claudia Wilken, she's vacillating. What are we going to do? Any idea? I can't hear you. Yeah.
Where's my $20.5 million, Rob? I've lost my $20.5 million. I can't find my money.
Yeah. And we're going to get into
the
that.
Judges took it.
The judge
has my cash. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people are asking her that. And where is it? Hey, take a picture of the QR code with your cell phone. We're live streaming on 7 channels every morning at 8 a.m. Central on X.
It's crazy.
Follow us, subscribe. And on YouTube, we got a great channel. Brenden is adding content and making these. It's unbelievable. There's stuff from morning to night. You cap it off at 9 Eastern, the Buddy Martin Show.
We have
and afternoons.
We got Skarbinsky today at noon Central.
Okay.
Then we've got Dukes tonight at 7:30 Central. Yeah. And then we got the Buddy Martin Show, which will be 10 p.m. Central for all your Central people, and then kick it back an hour for all you East Coasters, right?
No, 9 p.m. Central. 9 p.m.
Yes.
Eastern. Yeah,
I don't know. You guys are all in the weirdest time zone in the history of time. The only people that are in it are you all, and I don't know why I have to know that because it's either East Coast or West Coast. That's all I got to do.
Yeah. And the mountain time.
But the good thing is if you miss it, you can come watch it whenever you want because it's sitting there waiting for you.
That's right. That's right. And I love that Duke Scoops, man. It is and Scarbo and AU Undercover and Buddy Martin Show. I was watching that last night. I always watch it. It comes on. I get an alert because I subscribe. It comes on my phone, ding, at 8 p.m. Central, and you're getting great content. Matt Dean, Coach Matt Dean, getting back on the bench. John Hartwell, AD at University of Louisiana Monroe, and Bill Lansden will be on here in about 8 minutes. And we're going to get into a discussion today about a lot, but trending topics. And Brenden keeps us in line. Okay, Claudia Wilken, the judge in the big house settlement case, she's vacillating. She's caught in the middle about scholarship limits and a lot of issues. And then you've got the athletes. You pick the school. Denzel Aberdeen leaves Florida. I mean, Buddy Martin, that was one of his really cool stories this year. A player he really latched onto. Now Denzel's gone to Kentucky for apparently a lot of money. And then Chad Baker Mazzara, wow, what a story there. He apparently signed his new NIL deal with Auburn for 7 figures, allegedly. And then a day or two later, the whole time, his agents, his pimps, were out there shopping him to other schools, and now he's leaving. I will tell you how it works in the business world. It's the same thing. Auburn will have a right, the collective, if they signed a contract, to go back after him and claw back that money, or the school that signs him will have to pay that back to Auburn, just like when you buy out coaches. Am I right, wrong, or somewhere in the middle? Anyone? Bueller, want to try to answer that one?
Sure, I'll hop in there. Morning, guys. Hope y'all are doing well. And as always, Brenden is I won't say Johnny on the spot. I'll say Brenden on the spot because there is I've just pulled up the correspondence I got last night and just said, tonight we received an email from NCAA General Counsel confirming that Judge Wilken is withholding final approval of the House settlement for 2 weeks. While she notes her tentative approval of other areas, she directs the plaintiffs, NCAA, and defendant court conferences to modify the immediate implementation of roster limits. So there's this whole thing, hey, if somebody's already been on the roster, you're going to make room for them, that becomes cumbersome and troublesome because if you've got somebody who's a true freshman, you're going to hold that spot for 3, 4, 5 years because, and I know there's probably listeners out there that say, well, gosh, you're not going to be there more than a year. Well, if they were a preferred walk-on from, let's just say one of ours from Bossier City, Louisiana, and they came here as a walk-on and they're not likely going to be a starter or significant contributor, they may well be here for 5 years. So you have to keep that and regardless whether they're scholarship or not, do you keep that? That's going to make it so confusing. But I think there is a little bit of fear out there now or concern that, hey, she won't make a final decision and bang the gavel, if you will, and say, hey, this is final. And the further the can gets kicked down the road towards that July 1 implementation date, the fear creeps back in. Hey, is this whole thing, are there too many questions in this deal? Is it going to get kicked down the road for another year? Because if we don't sometime here in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks come to a final agreement, July 1 is fast approaching, and there are some stipulations in here that really can't be done after the fact, if you will. So it's pretty significant. Shifting gears just a second, and with the portal open, with the football portal opening last Tuesday, and we have now had 3 or 4 guys who we didn't necessarily want to go in the portal who are in the portal, but it's crazy money. I mean, I would say and this is verified. This isn't just street agents talking. This is actually talking to coaches at that level. I mean, I think you can pretty much say a starter at the Power 4 level in football is somewhere north of $500,000. I mean, it's crazy what is happening. And you've got backups, at that same level that are $250,000 a year. And it is created insanity, especially, at the group of 5, group of 6 level with some of the money that's being thrown around.
Matt Dean, powerful stuff there, but that's real-time information. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further. The money that John's talking about, football athletes, look at some of the money that basketball athletes are. Memphis had a tremendous year. They lost in the NCAA early, but a lot of hope with trying to retain PJ Haggerty, and there are reports that he may get a ridiculous amount of money. And there's still hope that Memphis can retain him, but with what's going on right now, it's just like, if you see a Power 4 school lose a starter, PJ Haggerty's going to go somewhere, guys, and he's going to get a big payday. And I just never envisioned it to get to this level, because when you go down to the true NIL, the name, image, likeness, I think we all understood like the Bryce Young deal with Dr. Pepper and how the money's coming in there. But money now to just go play, it's a ridiculous amount, and it's very unsustainable. And basketball's always been a developmental sport, even though you have these one and dones. Historically, if you come in as a first year, you really get stronger in the weight room, and by junior year, you're a really good basketball player. And you don't see as much of that. However, you do see these older teams, as John and I have talked about throughout the weeks, that make runs in the NCAA tournament. I think 2 years ago, San Diego State was a great example that if you get a bunch of men out there, you can beat really talented players. You
really can. And before we go to Bill Lansden from the University of Arkansas, I think what's cool is, John, you said it. They got to do something, but they played kick the can for decades. If they'd have given student athletes basic pension, health care, long-term for all the injuries, I think we would have avoided all or most of this. But this is what happens when you don't address the problems that you have. So, look, in the middle of all this, and this is what Bill Lansden's going to talk with us about. And Bill, is at the University of Arkansas, and he's been around. He's been at Virginia Tech. Bill, you are now in Fayetteville, and it's easy. Welcome aboard. This is one of the great people, man. MUS grad, class of '82. We were all that's the greatest class ever, greatest generation ever. But Bill, you're a Rhodes College graduate. You played football there, and I know people like Justin Ross and Mark Hammer. A lot of people that played college football at Rhodes. They are just as tight as the guys that played at Arkansas or Florida or Auburn, because they went through hell, the practices and all the stuff you got to do. And then you got to be a regular college student, go over to the fraternity house, drink some road sodas, hang out with your friends. I know Chris Perkins was there, when he came back from Ole Miss, got his degree, and you did it. You made it happen. Now you're at Arkansas. So here's a question. John Hartwell, the athletic director at ULM, is with us. Matt
Hey,
Dean,
Bill.
Hey, John. How are you, man?
Doing well.
And our executive producer, Brenden Martin in Ocala, Florida, with Gator Bait Media. He and his dad own that. What's going on in traditional fundraising? Our friend Jim McClellan sent me that picture a couple of weeks ago. I got to know him about a year and a half ago through a mutual friend, Maury Gaston. Brick and mortar fundraising, NIL. And everybody, the short list at Arkansas. Let's call Warren Stevens. Let's call Mr. Hunt. Let's call Jim McClellan. It's not that easy, is it?
No, it's not. First of all, thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah.
Lord, it's been, 40 years probably?
I mean, I've seen you since then here and there, but I hear a lot about you. Chuck Galena and you both went into the same business, and Chuck's back in Memphis now. We got to get him on with us too.
That's great. And Matt Dean, my goodness, man, you're looking great. How are you?
I'm doing well, Bill. Hey, and Rob, Bill Lansden's in our Hall of Fame. You didn't mention that.
I wanted you to, because you mentioned it last
He's
week.
a Hall of Famer, brother.
Hey.
Show some respect, Rob. Show some respect.
I need you to meet my kids, okay? Because they don't believe it. Rob, it's really interesting when I switched from athletics to the academic side. It's not as transactional, obviously, right? Most of the people that donate to a college of engineering or business are doing it because of what they received when they were here. But I will say, and I've kind of brought my dean along on this, is that everybody I get in front of has been financially successful.
Yeah.
Right. Or otherwise I'm not in front of them.
That's right.
They got there probably because they're competitive.
Yeah.
And in athletics, I mean, John can attest to this. When I was at Virginia Tech, it was always about how come we're not as good as Clemson football?
Yeah.
Well, their budget's twice as big, or they have an indoor, we don't, whatever it was. That's what tended to motivate the fans at Virginia Tech. Here at Arkansas in the College of Engineering, what we're doing is that we're taking the same approach. We want to be the best College of Engineering within 400 miles.
Yeah.
Like we want to be the premier College of Engineering in this region, and that has resonated with our donors because they're successful and they're competitive.
Yeah. Well, Bill, one thing I noticed when I was up in Fayetteville for the Tennessee game in October with Jim and Pat McClellan, and we got to meet Chancellor Robinson. Everybody at Arkansas is on the same page. And, John's got the people. John's a uniter at ULM. Matt's that way at Rhodes. You can't do it without it. So I know a lot about Virginia Tech. Brother-in-law played football there. Got two nieces and a nephew that graduated from there. Sister Susan lives in Roanoke, the Star City. I'm sure you've been there a million times. But I was there in Virginia in 1987 when they hired Frank Beamer. And I remember telling my brother-in-law, I said, he sounds just like a Southern football coach. And he just got it, and Shane Beamer was there, and they burned the couches downtown, kind of like a cheap furniture party we had in high school. But I look at Arkansas. I went all over that campus, and I met your chancellor, and he and I got to talk, and my wife, Audrey, really, I know he gets it. So kind of, and I want John and Matt to get on this, but traditional fundraising versus, brick and mortar, the Bill Lansden School of Textile Engineering, that's there forever. NIL, some kid comes by for a cup of coffee for $500,000. Could you imagine telling Jake Rudolph, I'm out, Bobby Austin? I mean, I don't feel like it. I'm not feeling it today. I can't imagine, or Tom Nix, you name the coach. You're right. The College of Engineering at Auburn is where they raise more money than any of the 13 colleges in the university.
Yeah,
You're at the tip of the spear. So let's get this round table going, because y'all have forgotten more than I know about it.
Yeah, I don't know if John wants to jump in.
Yeah, and hey, I feel like I'm in esteemed company because Bill is one of those true Rain Man, and I use that term to a student athlete the other day. He looked at me like I didn't know what the hell. What are you talking about, Rain Man? But Bill is one of those guys that, from an athletics development standpoint, has always been very successful. So great to visit with you. And when I was in Oxford and he was right up the road in Memphis, we got to see each other a little bit more. But Here's the thing. You still got some people who don't necessarily have an appetite for NIL money. I mean, they're just adamantly, philosophically opposed to it. But as Bill said, what we do is not rocket science. There's a clear correlation between investment in and success output. And that holds true in facilities, in operations, and NIL money. I mean, you can just go down the line in that, and that correlation is there and will always be there. And many places, and I'll use Ole Miss as an example, they had this big capital campaign going on, and they were going to renovate Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, which is back on the docket, I see here in the last couple of weeks. But they shut that down because, Lane Kiffin and Beard and Bianco and the other coaches said, hey, out here on the recruiting trail, you got to have decent facilities, but it doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal. Kids want money in their pocket. And, that may be an indictment to the purist of college athletics, but that's the way it is. And we've talked about this on here before, you either adapt and survive or don't adapt and you die on the vine.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about this with what the Razor's Edge Collective at Arkansas, Bill. Hunter Yurachek, your athletic director, was in Memphis at the Touchdown Club last fall. He gets it. But Madden Iamaleava, he's going to go to UCLA. You sign a contract, you get upfront money, you got to stay. If you leave, I don't see how you can't be held liable to pay it back. Matt, can you imagine that conversation, what that's like right now? Because I think that's happening at colleges all over the country, and it is. We know it is.
Well, to quote a favorite movie of mine, Draft Day, we live in a different world, okay, than we did 30 seconds ago, right? First of all, Bill knows this because he played here. He's a proud alum. We're a totally different entity. I educate myself talking to John and Bill. And the reality of the situation is once you let this out of the box, I don't think we should be surprised what's going on, because NIL was happening way before NIL was technically legal. And we've talked about this many times. Name, image, and likeness is not really happening. It's just payment to players. Yeah. So contractually, I can't answer that. I don't know how that works. John and Bill would have a better idea of that than myself. We do have a small platform here called Mogul, where some of our student athletes register for a very small portion of maybe some Instagram starter company stuff. But that's it. We're more concerned with getting our really good student athletes in med school and law school.
Yeah, which is what you're there for. It's student athletes. Bill, in your position, and you've been around, you've been at Memphis, Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech, big school on the Eastern Seaboard. They built that program. Arkansas, 34,000 students. I mean, and what a lot of them, maybe half from Texas. And yeah. But what is it like in what are you seeing up there? The fundraising part. Do you have that conversation? Well, if I give you this, I need to give something to the Razor's Edge, or do they say, look, I worked my way through college. No way.
Yeah. It's fascinating here. And I don't know how it is with John at Monroe, but there's a real separation between the Razorback Foundation and our advancement office. There's not a correlation, right? So I don't know who they're talking to. And all the development officers, the Razorback Foundation are great, but they don't have to tell us who they're talking to. So the only time I come across it is when we make an ask and they say, well, look, I'm already doing A, B, and C with the Razorback Foundation. But I do want to go back to what Matt said. It's fascinating. Again, whether it's Division III or SEC or where Monroe is, it's still the same thing, right? So at Rhodes College, a couple of my former teammates got together and we've raised $350,000 creating an endowment in honor of one of our assistant coaches.
That's right.
It's the same thing. Wow. It's just Division III as opposed to Division I. But it's always about how do you present to that donor what the ROI is. Like, why am I actually giving this besides I just feel good about it? No, what's the ROI? And I think John will attest to this. What I found is that donors today are much more concerned about that. Like it's no longer, I just want to help my former college. It's like, yeah, I want to help them, but where's this money going to be invested and what's it going to lead to?
Yeah. Well, you think about in the city of Memphis, 3 big endowments. I went to PDS. What an endowment they have. Then I went to Great St. Luke's 2 years. Then I went to the Rock. But all my friends were at MUS. So I was like, well, I never got into that rivalry. But I can tell you, those 3 schools, my best friend from childhood, Boyd Wade, was a year ahead of us. I was redshirted in 2nd grade, so we're 2 days apart. But Boyd and Billy Orgel and those guys, they light it up on the phone. And now one of my son's friends, Griffin Walden, who's an Arkansas grad, is in the alumni office doing all that development. Great kid. He gets it. Graduated from Fayetteville 3 years ago. But, man, y'all are right. And, John, when you talk to people, or Matt, that went to a school, my mom graduated from Southeastern after she transferred back from Hollins. And but people are as proud of those schools. It's the old saying, it's all local. And Jim McClellan, holy cow, that guy, if you cut him, it would say woo pig suey. I mean, but he can go, I've seen him in front of other people. Hey, man, let's support the university. And your chancellor, man, he could get you excited about spending some money. I think that's exactly what it is. John, when you got to ULM, it was a mess. And look what you've done since you got there. What did Chris Del Conte, the AD at Texas, tell you in the press box at the game last year? Here you go. You're doing the magic again.
Yeah, it's it's not one person. It's obviously a team. But making progress. But back to the overarching thing, and Bill's comments about ROI. That becomes more and more difficult when you've got, I won't even say 1 year wonders. You got 9 month or 6 month wonders on campus, and then they're hitting the button again. And loyalty is hard. It's hard to put that characteristic out there to potential donors. You got to cut to the chase, and there are some donors out there. Rob's fictitious foghorn leghorn.
I say yes, sir.
This is about winning a champion, giving us the best opportunity to win a championship this season. It's not about next season, because everything is now in one season segments for people competing at the highest level in terms of trying to win a championship. And that's sad. That's really that's not what the intention was, but that's what we're dealing with today.
And you talk, and John, I know you've got to go here in a second, and I told Bill I'd just keep him for about 15 minutes, but this discussion's getting down to the bottom line. What's the ROI? That's why I think it's unsustainable with NIL, what we're doing. But the College of Mechanical Engineering, you get a guy, Bill or Matt, that went to Arkansas, moved to Houston, got in the, oil business, and he came up with a new type of pipe fitting, and he's worth $500 million. He's going to remember what happened at Arkansas. That's the fun part about your job. But the guy that comes by for a semester, a cup of coffee, and bolts out, I don't know how you're going to have team reunions going forward.
Or Hall of Fames. What's your criteria going to be through somebody like Bill getting elected to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
But I'll give you guys a quick snapshot. Yeah, and I do have to go in just a second. But we have for whatever reason, we ended up having a really late spring break this year. So this week is our spring break here at Monroe. Spring practice is over. It ended 2 weeks ago today. But our coaching staff stayed here this week, and we've got, probably 15, 20 kids who opted not to go home. And our coaching staff has activities for those kids every day. The kids that they, maybe on the fringe of consider, or we've staved off the wolves, if you will, in terms of transfer portal. But again, here since it opened last Tuesday, we've had 4 kids that we really didn't want to go in the portal, go in. But when you're looking at $700,000 for a kid from a small community in the Louisiana Delta, whose families never had anything, there becomes a point where, you can get pissed off about the situation, but you can't fault the kid for that. And you just got to make sure that it's real. And as I mentioned, some of these numbers that we're getting are not through the agents. These are actually from coaches at the institution. But I do want to go back on the players leaving and potentially, the institution having a contract or filing suit back against those players for leaving. I think that's going to come a little more under control come July 1. But right now you've got a situation where, the collective, which is outside the university, has paid them. The agreement to play is between the institution and the individual.
Yeah.
So does the university really have recourse that they've gotten paid that, or are they going to have to go back and sue the collective, which is an outside third party? Again, as in a lot of these scenarios, and I hate to diss on any attorneys out there, the attorneys are who are winning at the end of every one of these scenarios.
Yeah. It really is. John, look, I know you've got to get rolling. You've got a million things to do, but that's a great point, and we'll do it again next week with you. And Bill, you see it, what you just said about the conversation, the Razorback Foundation, and then the Razor's Edge is the NIL collective. But before you go, how can people, like in your role, someone wants to work and give to Arkansas, they want to give to both. Hell, I'd send them, now that I know you're there, I'd say go talk to Bill Lansden, because you're exactly what we need is student athletes. I mean, you look at the guys that, you look at your classmates. I see Tim Deaton a lot, Bill Proctor a lot. I mean, but think about y'all, Matt. They had a coach, Jake Rudolph. I remember going to MUS day camp. Hey, thunderstorms coming in, tornadoes. Ain't nothing to be scared of, son. I mean, I wouldn't swap that for anything in this world. Having people tough like that coming up. And I think about the guys when we were coming up. That's why it doesn't matter. The MUS and Christian Brothers do everything together. And it's great for the city of Memphis. These student athletes that are not sticking around, they're not going to have any place to call home, Bill.
No, not at all. And I see it a lot with my wife. She played basketball here at the U of A, so we go to all the women's games. She sees all her former players. She still knows some of the coaches that are around. And that's just not going to be the case anymore going forward.
Yeah, we had Jimmy Dykes on the show a few weeks ago. He was phenomenal. He's got a daughter at Tennessee, though.
Does he really?
Yeah. He was kind of in shock, like, wow, we're trying to get Pat Bradley, Matt, the shooter from Everett, Mass, to come on here. But I think, Matt, before Bill goes, I know you got other questions, but this is what we need more of. This is a guy that paid the dues. And if you think about academically what you did, and you were a hell of a football player, but you learned that really in high school. You learn that stuff at home. But this Judge Claudia Wilkin, she's got to make a decision soon, because the uncertainty is what drives the market crazy. And here's Maury Gaston, this guy that just put a comment up there. He's on the engineering council board at Auburn. He's a mechanical engineer. Y'all two would have a great conversation. He's the one who introduced me to Jim McClellan. He's good.
Yeah, okay.
But going forward, if we don't get it, you know what? We will get a handle on this. We've survived everything else, So I know, but Matt, take it away.
Well, I just want to quickly provide a little context to Bill, what you said about the endowment fund created for one of your former coaches. And I think it's a tremendous example. What you don't know about that story, Rob, is there are significant contributors to that fund that the college had lost from their general fundraising.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we're not going to go names, but I think what athletics does, and in this case, our head football coach has brought some people back to the table. because of going back to Bill's first premise. We're all competitors, and a lot of these Rhodes student athletes in Bill's class, Bill's era, are doing tremendous, including Bill. So, I just think it's a great example of even a place like Rhodes College that's not in the NIL business. We are to a different extent with that example Bill provided, because we have a bunch of alums contributing to a program in honor of their former coach. And I will tell you, that coach I only knew for 2-3 years, even though I've been here 34, and he had such an impact on me. I can't imagine if I were to have the pleasure of playing for him, the impact. So we see that in our level a lot. My former boss, Herb Hilgeman, we finally worked and got the court named after him last year, right before he passed. And man, it took a lot of work. We thought it was a no-brainer, but there's always a giving component when you name something.
Yeah, there really is. And Bill, I want to get you back on some panel discussions going forward, because what you're doing at the University of Arkansas is what's going to keep the doors open. NIL, it's not really. But tell people, we got a lot of Hog fans that watch. I have a lot of Razorback friends. Tommy Christianberry probably watching right now. Arguably like an older brother to me, the greatest athlete in MUS history.
And he's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and I remember when we were in high school, the Brentwood game, 35-7. I couldn't believe they beat MUS like that. Ken Austin, the quarterback, Jimmy Hockaday, the tight end. But MUS always, you were part of something really special, what Jake Rudolph did and all. But let people know how they can follow you and your closing comments. And then we're going to go to Chris Lee from Southeastern 16. But it's a pleasure to have you on here. And I'm going to tell everybody you are on here, but you'll be back hopefully very soon.
Man, I'd love to. So, hey, Dean's the one who told me about your podcast.
Thank you.
And then back to what Matt said. So there are 12 of us getting together in Nashville this weekend who all played football together at Rhodes. And this is like the 20th year in a row. It goes back to your point, right? We all stayed there. We all grew up together, went through the hardship, had all the success, and then built lifelong friendships, which these kids aren't going to have going forward. But it's great seeing y'all, man. Let me know whenever you want to get my opinion. I'm not quite sure why you would, but if you do, I would love to jump back on.
It matters, but I think about Luttrell, Tim Deaton, Tom Owen, you, Proctor. Yeah. And y'all were our rival. But that y'all were close, and we're all friends. We did barbecue festa together, and a lot of great things have come out of that. But Bill, thank you so much.
All right.
And, woo!
Thank you, Bill.
Take care. All right.
Take care, buddy. Tell Blair I said hello.
That's exactly what we got. Chris Lee, another one of the good guys out there, Southeastern 16 up in Nashville. A lot of people call it the mid-state. It's Nashville. It's the state capital. And Bill is a native, covers Vandy, covers the whole SEC, probably loves baseball more than any single sport. Look at his logo in the back. I want to say real quick before we do this, something about Winter Timber Outdoors. Folks, it's turkey season right now, but it's never out of season to be geared up. Everything you need, Athens, Alabama. I was texting with Kenny Winter and Dylan Monroe yesterday. The store in Auburn looks like now August 1st opening, 13,000 square feet. It's kind of a big deal. All your shotguns, rifles, and handguns with a competent, well-trained staff. You go in the field hunting, you got to have the right gear. You got to have a plan. Winter Timber will make it happen. They've got everything you need for all the shooting sports, Yeti coolers, Dixie decoys, gear, duck camp, and Sitka. They got more Sitka gear than you've probably ever seen in a store. At Winter Timber out of Athens, Alabama. Chris, having a discussion just then with John Hartwell, the AD at ULM, Bill Lansden, College of Engineering at Arkansas, about the clash between traditional brick and mortar fundraising and the NIL collectives and all like that. But now we're going to switch gears and let's talk some SEC football, basketball, baseball. What are y'all talking about? You put out tons of content. It's great content because everything you do, it's like it has a purpose. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It takes time. That's where I'm putting my bandwidth in the sports world right now. I'll wait till the transfer portal settles other sports, and I've got other guys to cover that. But I'm really locked in on the NCAA baseball race for seeding, and hosting and who gets bids and all those things. And boy, is the SEC in prime position to do some things.
Matt Dean is on with this. And Matt's going to be back on the bench next year coaching in women's basketball at Rhodes, but he's got a son on the staff at Oregon with Dan Lanning. So it's in the blood, Matt. We're sitting here talking about SEC baseball after this basketball season we just had. Now you got baseball is right there. Matt, life is great in the South, isn't it?
It is. And hey, Chris, I think we've been on before. It's great to see you. The beauty of the SEC is because of the quality of the league in baseball, it never stops. And like today is draft day. There'll be a ton of SEC athletes that are going to be drafted tonight in the next 3 days. We're talking about baseball, but we're also prepping for, summer football and media days. And then we started all over again. We just recycle. And I think what's kind of neat, when I moved to the South 30 plus years ago, SEC basketball was a thing, but it's not like the thing it is right now, because, back in my day when I grew up, the ACC was such a dominant conference in basketball. And quite frankly, now with the year we just had in basketball, puts a little pressure on football to deliver in the playoffs next year too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Sorry, Rob.
No, go ahead.
I think you've got parity in football in a way that I've never seen it. As long as I remember following college football, which I think is good in a lot of ways. I don't like the way they got here in a lot of ways, but like when Vanderbilt can line up and play Alabama and not only have a shot but win the game, I think it's good to have some of the teams that had just no shot at all. Now you look up and Indiana's in the playoff, and hey, a lot of stuff seems possible for a lot of programs that were not possible before.
Yeah.
Chris, a couple of programs, if you're looking for some fallen angels, that's a stock market term for good companies that pay dividends that are down in price. Florida and Auburn are two of those. Tennessee was, but they got to the playoffs last year with the unmentionable name who's no longer there, so we won't mention his name, but they got there last year. But Florida and Auburn, what you've seen in spring practice, are they making sufficient progress to get to that double-digit win category?
I'd be the wrong guy to answer that. I just don't put a lot of energy into those things because, a kid can blow up in spring practice and then leave the next day.
I should have qualified that statement.
No, I just, to be honest, and I know I'm an oddball in that way. I don't pay any attention to that stuff until everything's settled and I know what the rosters are. I've got, first of all, I've got a lot going on with baseball. I feel like I would like to know what the teams are.
Yeah.
And then I'll do my homework. In the meantime, I'm looking at baseball.
Yeah, Matt and guys, I keep kidding around about this, but the crawl that you see at the bottom of your TV screen, we really need to start using that with when you're talking about a specific team, the roster, because it can change during our show. It is that. All right. So you're talking about SEC baseball. It hadn't been getting a whole lot of attention. People say, well, it doesn't move the needle like football. They say basketball doesn't move the needle like football, but basketball, it's a special season in the SEC this year. It was hard to talk about football. Baseball gets, over a little bit of overlap, but now baseball is on its own with track and field and, other softball, but SEC baseball top to bottom. How about it?
Whew.
It is better than basketball was this year in the SEC, and it is not even close.
Wow. That's amazing. Texas has some extra cash. They're really good. Good enough to win it all because they've been to the World Series 38 times.
I think so. I'm a little worried if you want to poke holes in teams and when a team escalates to a position where Texas is, I start looking for, where are the holes? And I think after about 8 guys on the pitching staff, they drop off a little bit. They've still got probably 9, 10, 11, 12 guys that could pitch for just about anybody, but there's a little drop off. And I'm keeping an eye on Jared Spencer, their Friday night guy. who left to start, I think, in the middle of the third inning. And they said, the look on his face was not good when he was pulled. After the game the next day, they said, it's soreness. He's going to be okay. And then the next news cycle was, okay, this may be really concerning. So I haven't looked in the last 24 hours to see where that is. But if Texas loses its ace, that affects some things. Number two, they haven't had Max Ballou for probably a month now. He is their best hitter. No, look, they've done fine without him. I don't know if they've lost a conference game, but he was a guy that was in mock drafts 15 or 20 overall in the first round, that kind of level. I think he was the Big 12 player of the year last year. So, look, at some point, and Texas doesn't have the offensive explosiveness that some of the teams in the league have.
Yeah.
So there's some things there that could bring Texas a little bit down to earth, but that is no doubt, even with that, an elite team.
And I'm sure, Matt, the good folks in College Station are cheering Jim Schlossnagel's success at Texas. That one hurt.
Yeah, that's a tricky one there. But, to Chris's point, I just went on D1Baseball.com. Of the top 11 that they're currently ranked, 7 are SEC schools. I think, Chris, there's 10 of the top 23 or something like that. If you want to go all the way down, that's just incredible. And it just shows you what the SEC is all about in baseball. It's been that way forever, but this year, no exception. And I honestly think, when you add Texas and Oklahoma to the mix, and Oklahoma's ranked 14th in the country. Yeah. Okay, they're 29-10. I mean, you look at the depth now in our league with the additions of those two schools across the board. I mean, honestly, in football and baseball, they have delivered. In basketball, both teams were in the tournament, didn't really have what I would call impactful years. But, I think the purest, if you go to Omaha, which I've been one time, Chris, I'm sure you've been a lot more than I have. What a great experience to go to the College World Series. The Final Four, I've been to over 10 Final Fours in my career, and the Saturday for the Final Four, there's nothing like one day. But the duration of the College World Series and how it plays out is it's one of the best things going in college athletics.
Chris, and I know you got a little bit of a delay there, so I'll
yeah, it's a phenomenal event.
So here's my next question. You look at Texas is on top of the world. You got Arkansas, LSU, Tennessee, but you've got a logjam. That's a powerful statement, but coming from you, it means something. It means a lot. It's not even close how much better it is than basketball. You had 7 of the Sweet 16 were from the SEC in March Madness. So I'm looking at the standings. Texas at 16-2, the Hogs at 13-5. Then you got LSU, Tennessee 12-6, Vanderbilt 11-7, Georgia and Ole Miss and Oklahoma 10-8. Then you got Auburn and Alabama at 9-9. Every one of those teams looks likely to host either a regional or a super, don't they?
Yeah, you've got 8 of the top 12 in the RPI as of this morning. And so my question that I'm watching is first of all, there's always been a sort of an unwritten rule that you've got to be at least 16-14 in the SEC to host. And maybe, get to 8. I don't know what the win number for a national seed would be. So my question is, it's a different league. Now, the wild card is Missouri is kind of like a free spot on the bingo card. They look hard at it like unless you are 16-14 in the league, you're not hosting. Now, does Missouri could legitimately?
I was going to ask you, has that ever happened?
Guys? And so there's a big difference between. No, at the worst I remember in the last quarter century is Alabama went 5-25 one year. I think.
Well, Chris,
treated. How does the fact that the league is tougher than ever get treated? Look, you've got South Carolina is 15 of 16 in the league, right? You go to some reputable computer rankings. South Carolina is still like a top 40 team in the country. South Carolina is the only team in the country as of a day ago that did not have a loss in quad 2, 3, or 4. And yet South Carolina would be probably considered the 15th best team of 16 in the league. That's how tough the league is.
Yeah. That's what happened in basketball. You kept looking at these quad 1 wins and, Ken Palm and all these other algorithms. But I'll tell you a team that it's just shocking to me is the Gators, Kevin O'Sullivan, they're 6-12. But if you don't have pitching, it's like not having a quarterback or not having a point guard, isn't it?
Well, they have pitching. Liam Peterson and the freshman who's named Aiden King could pitch for just about anybody.
Yeah.
In the weekend rotation. After that, it gets a little thinner. They've got some talented arms, but a lot of them are young. I think the issue with Florida is injuries have started to take a toll. Christian Rodriguez, who's one of their key, I think, lefties out of the bullpen, he's done for the year. Jake Clemente is missed some time, I think, in patches. And Pierce Coppola, who was a kid that, probably could have been a first rounder out of high school, who's been hurt 80% of his time in Gainesville, was pitching well early in the year, then got hurt again. Kid, when he's out there and firing, looks a little bit like Randy Johnson. I mean, he's tall, he's a big lefty, and got that angle, and he's hard to hit. Florida's also lost on offense. They've lost Kyle Jones, and there's another starter whose name escapes me. But here's my point. Florida's not a bad team, and Florida started to play good baseball, even with some of the injuries. But I don't know that a lot of teams in the country have been hit as much with impactful injuries as Florida has. The top part of that rotation is good, but they have lost some of their pitching depth through injuries, and that has had an impact.
Yeah, and I remember it wasn't too many years ago, Mississippi State got to Omaha, and I think it was unbelievable. They had lost 5 of their 6 or 7 top pitchers in the rotation. Speaking of them, before I go back to Matt, Chris Lamanis, Mississippi State, again, the curious tale of Benjamin Button and the curious tale of Mississippi State baseball. How'd they get where they are? I heard Chuck Oliver say something yesterday. He goes, people don't say, you're Mississippi State in football. You should be better than that. They don't say that. But as Chuck said, you got left field, and that's why college baseball is so big. Of course, LSU, Arkansas, Ole Miss, those are 4 of the top 5 attendance programs in the country.
Number one, I didn't think they were going into the season as good on paper as they were rated. They were a top 25 team just about everywhere. And that would be, probably in the 18 to 25 range. But I just looked and stacking them up to other teams in the league, I thought they were probably 12, 13-ish. So like either I'm missing something or maybe everybody else's sizes up a different way. That said, I think they're better than the record. The problem is it's like it's always something with them, right? Their defense has been bad. They've made a lot of errors at shortstop, which is a key position on the field. And what's been really good for them is their pitching depth's been good, and their Friday night starter's been good. Well, they are not winning games on Fridays because a lot of times they can't score or they'll make a key error. And now their pitching depth has kind of collapsed. So they're in a spot where, look, anybody, because of the schedule, anybody not named Missouri, if they got on an incredibly hot run to end the season, could still make the tournament. That includes Mississippi State.
Yeah.
But when you're at this point, you've won 5 games and you're losing some midweek games that maybe you needed. Their margin for error is very, very thin.
Yeah, and Matt, yesterday we had Jacques Doucet on from WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge. LSU got run ruled by Northwestern State, 10 runs the other day, and that's kind of a shocker. But Matt, jump back in.
Well, the tough thing about baseball too, from a sport perspective, is the midweek games. You save your best for the weekends, and if you have pitching depth, those midweek games are much easier. Especially a lot of times they slot the younger guys to pitch against the Northwestern States or whoever you're playing in the middle of the week, because you're saving your Friday night starter, obviously, for the best game of the weekend in the series. We just had over at our house, family friend Jeffrey Bramlett, who was a Friday night starter for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Got drafted by the Royals, had a AA contract going to Arizona when COVID hit. They canceled minor league baseball, if you remember, for that stretch of COVID. He went to independent ball, was reliever of the year, converted from a starter to a reliever, went from 88-92 to 94-96, Then he'd blow out his elbow. But the great thing about Jeffrey was it was always education. And one thing I want to talk to Chris about, what's interesting, what I've learned on the whole scholarship increasement in baseball, you're going to go from 11.7 to over 30, it looks like, here in the future, which is going to make the depth of these rosters really curious, because I know Jeffrey was a Friday night starter and was not fully compensated in that scholarship allotment. So baseball's going to change, and you're going to see a lot more emphasis on going out and getting more pitching with that scholarship increase. And also, I think it's interesting, we don't really talk a lot about NIL in baseball, Chris. Do you have a sense of where some of that is? I was just curious on that.
I heard most of your question. I think my internet connection here is awful, which may explain the two ATT trucks outside my house. But
they
anyway,
knew you were coming on our show.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I talk fast, Chris.
No. It wouldn't have mattered in this case. I don't think. I think that the general direction was NIL and scholarships. I don't know where that's going to head exactly. I do. Scholarship's kind of a funny term because I'm wondering how many kids actually go to class anymore.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. Number one. And number two, I mean, I think I've had people tell me for a while, like, this house settlement is not going to be the thing that people think it is. And I think you saw a little bit of that yesterday. I don't think, and I know your question was a little more specific than I'm answering. I'm just not sure this all gets changed. A court or somebody can implement an order or a way of rules, but now players have a lot of power. And until there's some kind of agreement from the other side of the table, what keeps happening is kids go to court challenging anything and everything. Now we're to the point I'm convinced we're going to see, Diego Pavia playing quarterback at Vandy when he's 40. I'm a little bit sarcastic with that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have a hard one. I think what I'm seeing is more and more money gets pumped into more and more things. And as those programs, that are getting money pumped in.
Yeah. Matt.
What's going to be interesting, you saw it last year with Kentucky of all people. Tyler Bell was a number 2, a second-round draft pick for Tampa.
Yeah.
Signed with Kentucky. You don't usually see kids that are like top 100 prospects, and Tyler Bell, I think, was top 65. And if they do, it's an LSU or somebody like that, right? Now that kind of kid is going to Kentucky, it was just one thing. I'm wondering, like, how many schools can make a competitive bid to a kid who can get a 7-figure signing bonus and get him to an SEC campus, and not just the ones where they usually, when the money is turned down, it's the Vandy's, it's the LSU's. But now that it's happening for Kentucky, that was something that kind of sparked my interest a year ago.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned about you want to get people to invest with NIL, show academic legitimacy. I mean, again, we don't ever hear nobody's academically ineligible anymore. So that's crazy. Let me say something real quick. Landers Ford, folks, they're open every day of the week except Sunday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. The 25 Ford Expeditions are in on the lot. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Memphis and Collierville meet. Right there on the corner, you will see the big American flag, always flying. Took it down a few days for the recent storms, but it was right back up. Boy, did people notice. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, our friend, is on this show every week. You're worried about tariffs and cost. They're doing employee pricing for their customers. Let them know you heard about them on SEC Sidelines. They'll take another $500 off. $500 will buy you a lot of cool stuff. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Stopped by there yesterday to see Charles and Raven and JM and Lydia and everybody. The spring fashions are in, man. They've got duck heads, luggage from Filson, STS, some of the coolest stuff you'll ever see, and a massive selection of men's and women's boots, dresses. If you're looking for great looking clothes for a gift for your wife, your girlfriend, ladies listening, for your husband, your boyfriend, that is the place to go. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m., 6 p.m. Chris, I know you've got a tight schedule. Before you go, make sure you let people know how they can follow you. And your breakdown in baseball is fantastic. And 11.7 to 35 scholarships. I just wonder if you'll hear as much of a push. Alabama needs a lottery after they fully fund the scholarships. That'll be a case to watch as well.
Yeah, I actually look forward to that too, to see some given some, other teams a little bit. And I know Vanderbilt was always kind of the punching bag for that. The extra scholarships, but when your tuition is now, it's $90,000 to go there a year, giving somebody a half scholarship just now makes it a little bit more expensive than the next most expensive team in the league. So I think that just clearing all that from the air is going to be helpful. But thank you for the nice words. We're going to be in about an hour if my internet connection cooperates, previewing all the weekend series in the SEC this week, and it won't be live, but we'll release that probably later this morning or afternoon. We'll do series recaps of all 4 nights of SEC action, and I say I'm not staying on top.
Yeah. The AT&T truck got him again.
The transfer portal in both sports right now, happenings there. Yeah, and I'm all in on baseball because there's a lot to follow.
Chris, Southeastern 16, thank you so much for your time. We'll do it again next week. Matt, it's wild when you're live streaming. You remember what was the fight, Mike Tyson and that other guy? Brenden was going, you see what I'm talking about, how hard it is to live stream? And that was on what, Netflix or something? Jerry Jones was involved. What could possibly go wrong? He owns the Cowboys. Don't they win the Super Bowl every year? Hey, if money alone can solve it, it's really not a problem. All right, Matt, great stuff as always. You're on my round table of how we're going to fix college athletics. I think we made a lot of progress today. And everybody out there watching, thank you. Share the show, subscribe, tell your friends and everybody to watch this channel because we are booked up morning through night. Watch us live or anytime you're at the beach, whatever. We have the executive producer, the great one, Brenden Martin. He's been streaming since 2008. His dad thought he had horns coming out of his head when he started doing this 17 years ago. A pioneer, to say the least. Matt, let me say, great on point about the student athletes too. Bill Lansden, perfect example of it. Yeah.
Great guest.
Yeah, he really is.
Well, my final thoughts today, Rob, is another great experience, but the next 3 days, I know we talk about some of the real tricky sides of athletics and the money, but the next 3 days with the NFL draft, so many lives are changed and so much work is done. A lot of people that listen know that I have a son that's on the the director of player personnel in Oregon. So, Oregon alone is trying to have, they had a record last year for their program, 8 players drafted. They think they're going to have 10 or more this year. And just the pure numbers, like we didn't talk about today, but I'm really curious where Jalen Milroe goes because I still think I listened to Nick Saban last night. I still think Milroe can become Jalen Hurts in the NFL. It's about development, and there's some great offensive minds in the league. There's some great offensive coordinators, and at the quarterback spot, you go all the way back to Jamarcus Russell, number 1 overall from LSU, right? And things never worked out for him, but we had great stories to the opposite. And I look at Jalen Hurts and his body of work and what he's done with the Philadelphia Eagles and winning a Super Bowl title, and just really excited for the next 3 days. It's 3 of my favorite days of the year. So that's what I got.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Hey, folks, again, thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned to this channel all day long. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go make great things happen. You can't have a new reality with an old mentality. Think about that. See you tomorrow.